right, welcome to the Perception Evolution Project podcast by WCE. This is the first time ever we're going live on 4 different platforms. We're on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter. So we'll see how this goes, but it's a little bit of a test run. For those of you who saw my post yesterday, unfortunately, Charles was pulled away. We were supposed to have Charles with PF Chang's regional facility manager on with us today, but unfortunately he was pulled away as facility managers often are, so I can't fault him for that, but we're going to reschedule that one for, going to shoot for Tuesday of next week, probably around the same time, 11 o'clock, so make sure you tune in. So you can catch that, and we're going to ask some cool questions there. But who we do have today is James Hoffman, who is currently the executive sales manager at Windy City Equipment. He's been with us for 3 years? 3 years now. So we're going to talk to him a little bit about his experiences in the restaurant industry. He has been a restaurateur for many, many years, and eventually ended up coming and working with us here at WCE. So with that being said, James or Jimmy?
Most people know me by Jimmy, but I go by James. That's kind of the way, but with the extra Jameses here. Jimmy seems to work out.
We do have a lot of Jameses.
Thank you for taking the time to talk with me a little bit here. I was in mostly the pizza business. Did that for roughly 17 years, where I was a corporate affiliate for one of the bigger chains based out of Michigan, and worked my way up through there from as working in the stores, physically being the one to make the product. And
one of the corporate chains. Who was the corporate chain?
The corporate chain was Hungry Howie's Pizza, based out of Madison Heights, Michigan.
Okay. I think a lot of viewers out there are probably familiar with Hungry Howie's.
Well, I'm sure they are.
Carry on, sorry.
So moved on to that to be a area supervisor, where I was supervising 4 or 5 stores where I would oversee them and make sure that they were running the proper numbers, the stores were functioning the way they are, handling any employee issues, PR relations, that type of thing. And from there, I moved into a regional director position, where I took over the mid-Michigan states. I had 13 stores that I directly supervised and oversaw all the managers. A little over 300 employees at one time that I was directly responsible for.
Wow, so you've done it all pretty much in that business, it sounds like.
Yeah, after the corporate life, I had the entrepreneurial spirit, then wanted to get out, spread my wings a little bit, made it out to Arizona. Acquired a couple.
What year did you come out to Arizona?
I came out to Arizona in 2005, so I've been here for some time, enough to get acclimated to the
13 years.
13 years.
Very cool.
A little over 13 years. So, then when I got to Arizona, found my way into owning a couple of Hungry Howie's, doing that and seeing the difference between the corporate side versus a franchisee. And it's quite a difference when you get down to it. Even when you do own a franchise, a lot of people think that when you're buying a franchise that you're getting a template on how to run a business, and a lot of times that's not true. You still have to have a strong business background to be able to jump into a position like that and run the stores properly.
What are some of the main differences, would you say, between
well, I think probably that when you deal with when you're working for a corporation, you have so many different avenues of help, and you have other people that are reaching out that handle different things throughout the departments. Like us here at Windy City, we all work as a team, and we have multiple departments. Everyone has their own place and their own job. From going from a corporate setting as a regional director, and as just moving into a couple of units where you're a couple of unit operator as a franchisee, and the biggest thing is you have to take on a lot of that work all yourself. You don't have that support team that you had, so now you're responsible for all the accounting aspects of it, the payroll. You're responsible for the store's maintenance and hiring facilities director or companies such as ourselves to repair your equipment, finding honest companies. That's the biggest struggle that a lot of new businesses will have, is finding that right guy that's going to make things happen for them. Your repairs are going to happen in a timely fashion. We're going to have somebody that only comes out there once. They're going to have parts in stock and go. And that's how I met you guys to start with.
Yeah, very, very cool. We're going to get into that for a minute, but I want to digress a little bit. And really, I'd like to know, I mean, I kind of know. I've known you for quite a while now. Like you said, you know, we started doing your work a long time ago. But I'd like everyone out there to know who is James Hoffman. I mean, your background in restaurants, that's great, you know, but how about a little bit about, you know, where you grew up? What did you want to be when you grew up?
Well, I went to school for vehicle design. And,
okay.
Vehicle design and pre-engineering, and that was in Michigan. I grew up in the Michigan area, just outside of Detroit, and kind of evolved a little bit, different towns all around there throughout my transition before I moved out here. But primarily, I'm a car guy. Love cars. So that was what I was really into.
What's your favorite car?
Oh, it's so hard to say. There's so many different ones. I'd say a Spiker though.
Yeah.
That's probably one of the unusual ones that most people don't know, but Austrian made, looks like an aircraft inside.
No kidding?
Beautiful cars.
I was just going to say, I have no idea what you're talking about, but it sounds cool.
Yeah, it's like a luxury supercar. So, but yeah, so I did that, and while I was going to school for vehicle design, I picked up a job in the food industry, and I was using that to support myself to get through college, and it turned out that I was making more money in the restaurant business than what I would have made for the job in vehicle design that I was at. And
funny how that works out, huh?
It does.
That's great. Okay, cool. So let's get back a little bit to what you were saying about how hard it is really to find a good service company out there, and you know, not trying to toot my own horn or anything, you know, or really it's my dad's horn at that point. You know, when you first met us, it was I think it was just him, right? Or
yeah.
Was it him? No, it was just him.
It was just him.
Yeah, and then I didn't come out for probably a year or two after that. Right, yeah. Right. So why don't you tell me a little bit about, you know, I guess at what point did you know that my dad and Windy City was a company that you could trust?
Well, your dad's a very outgoing person, and you know, I appreciated all the conversations that we'd have when he would come in to repair the equipment. One of the things that, and you know, he would take the time to actually go through the oven with me, show me things that might, you know, happen in the future. Middle beam Marshall ovens, for example, the motor cage that holds the conveyor belt motor. A lot of times, crew members in the restaurant don't pay attention to that. They'll bump it, it'll drop down, and it will fall down onto your shaft adapter and start cutting a groove into it. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Your dad was the person that took me off to the side and said, "Hey James, take a look at this. You know, this is what you have going on. This is the reason for it. If you keep an eye out for this, you're going to save a lot of money in the long run." And once that happened, I was like, wow, you know, this is a very honest company, and this is someone that stands behind their work, and they don't want to just take your money, they want to make things right for you. And that's where the relationship with Windy City had started. And
it's good. And you said something interesting to me just now. So you identified Windy City as not a company that will just take your money, you know.
Yeah.
So, and I think that might be indicative of a perception that you may have had at one point, or that's widespread across the industry, that maybe service companies or a lot of service companies, their objective is to take your money.
Well, absolutely. You know, I like to compare what we do now with auto mechanics, and everybody you know, has dealt with an auto mechanic throughout their life, one way, shape, or another. You know, you could take it into a dealership and they'll give you a slew of things, just as the same as a young, you know, little shop, that type of thing, where you're not sure what's actually wrong with the car. All you know is you want it fixed. And, you know, at the end of the day, you're looking at a number. Being in the restaurant industry for so long, you know, as much as I liked you and your dad, you guys were the last person I wanted to call because I knew it was going to be expensive.
Yeah, right.
You know, that's probably one of the least favorite things for a restaurant owner to pay is for equipment repairs and equipment maintenance, even though that's what's your bread and butter in the business itself. So, you know, with that being said, you just you have to keep trying people, and then once you find that one person, just stick with them. And if they're treating you right, you know, that's what it's about: communication, making sure that they're fixing things properly. They're not swapping out parts. That's the biggest thing that I would experience too. I dealt with a lot of that on the air conditioning end. on the HVAC side where, you know, if you didn't have a good seasoned tech that was coming into your restaurant, it was always the compressor that was wrong. And, you know, of course, that's the most expensive thing that's going to be fixed on it. So whenever you heard compressor job, well, is it really the compressor?
Right.
You know, or
have you ever had any experiences where you not only questioned if it was an improper repair, but actually found that it was? And you don't have to name names or anything,
but the one of the Hungry Howie's in East Mesa, I had a walk-in cooler that went down. I was gouged for about $4,500 on a bill. Being in the business that I'm in now, I know that you could replace all those components for right around that same price, and not just the compressor. You know, I ended up paying half of it, and it was a fight for it because I didn't feel that it was justified, and you know, he ended up negotiating down with me. So if he could come down half on it, you know, I was being taken advantage of.
I see. Okay. You also made a comment about how the equipment in the restaurant, also known as assets, you know, to any restaurant. You said that, you know, it was hard to spend money on that, which I completely relate to. You know, it's hard to spend money on just about anything, you know. But what makes it harder to spend money on equipment that needs to be fixed than, say, food delivery or...
Well, food delivery, obviously, you need... you know, for me, a lot of the things, I focused extremely hard on advertising and different forms of advertising. I like to dabble in little areas all around, and then I had my main advertising. So if I had a conveyor belt motor on my oven go down, you know, looking about $1,000 for you guys to come in. And with them, you know, coming in for $1,000, that was $1,000 that I could spend on, you know, a different form of advertising that may have built my business more than
something
just
that could generate
it.
revenue, something that you could see a bottom line, you could see an ROI.
Sure.
Okay.
You know, and the funny thing about that is that I've spent thousands of dollars on advertising that didn't work. Yeah. And in hindsight, looking at it now, the investment on the equipment, which was much better. You know.
Okay, yeah, no, that definitely makes sense. That's really cool. So I know I met you, we said, about 2 years after you met my dad.
Yeah.
My dad was running WCE as a one-man shop. And then I came in, I think it was 2008 or 2009, somewhere around there.
Okay.
You know, I came in, and he taught me the business from the ground up. I've talked about that on here before as well. You know, taught me first and foremost what it means to be a technician before I could be or do anything else with the company, which I'm incredibly grateful for, you know, because if I didn't have the knowledge that I do about techs.
By far one of the best technicians in Phoenix yourself.
Oh, no. You know, somebody said that. I think Jake said that the last time. No, really.
I've seen the quality of your work.
Honestly,
you do very well.
It's fine, but there are a ton of technicians out there. I never had any formal training. I had training from my dad, you know, but I'll be the first one to tell you, you know, I didn't have any of the Cefesa training. You know, of course now we've hired technicians that did, and you know, I've got my own thoughts on what that means and what benefit that provides, and I think it still boils down to character. But you know, I was taught kind of like the old school way, you know, not the step 1, step 2, step 3, you know. So there's a lot of techs out there that are able to take both of those methods, you know, the formal way and the informal way, combine them, you know, and really do a great job in what they do, and you know, add character, personality on top of that. And there's a ton of guys out there that, you know, I wouldn't even put myself up against. So but I appreciate you saying that. It's a nice thing to say. So, okay, anyway, I met you in 2008, 2009. So I think I do remember the first time I met you was at the Hungry Howie's. It was on Baseline somewhere.
Yes, 16th Street and Baseline.
Yeah,
we were replacing a controller in a Middleby 570.
That's right.
And you came out and reprogrammed the controller for us.
Yes.
And got me up and going. I was in a panic because I had, at that store at that time, I had a ton of school orders that were going out. And we desperately needed both the ovens to be working properly at all times there. So.
Yeah. Good memory. Jesus, that was a long time ago. 10 years ago. Yeah. What the fuck? All right, so well, that's cool. So how about the journey from the point that I met you or you met my dad to say 3 years ago when you came on with Windy City? And I mean, we're incredibly fortunate that that you decided to come on with us because, you know, obviously with your background in restaurants and things like that, you were able to see both sides of the coin, you know, and it really, I think, helped our customers gain a better perspective or perception on what we do and why. You know, you're in a unique position where you can explain and justify what needs to be done in any given situation because you've been there, you've been in their shoes. So how about explain the day that you got to WCE and kind of what your expectations were, you know, what your duties are and were back then, and how it's evolved from then till now.
Well, I started working with WCE. It was probably five or 6 years ago, actually. It was where I was just doing the installs with your dad.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, your dad needed some help. I needed extra money. At that point, I had sold off the Hungry Howie's pizzas, and I thought that it would be good to, instead of having a franchise, go independent and build some independent restaurants and try some new things out, my own recipes, my own concepts, and you know, to see what could evolve from them without having to pay the royalties. And you know, I had a very successful restaurant, the last one. It was doing well over $1 million in pizza sales at $5 pizzas. Problem was just the profit margins and the amount of labor that went into it, long hours, long nights. You know, it wore on to me, and wasn't really making the profit to make it worth it in my own mind. You know, at that point,
you were working for a job, it sounds like.
Yeah, it was more of a job than a business, and I realized that to get where I really wanted to be in life, it was going to take me another $1 million to build multiple units and build the brand that I was looking for. And at that point, I don't have an extra $1 million to throw at it. And I said to myself, if I had $1 million in the bank, is this what you would really want to do? And you know, I knew at that point it wasn't really what I wanted to do. Got into it young, had a lot of fun with it. I think it's a great opportunity for people that want to work hard and that are business minded to go for. You can really make a fantastic life for yourself in the business. It just takes a lot of money and a lot of time to do it.
Yeah.
And you know, hours were a big thing for me at that point. I had a restaurant that was open till 4 o'clock in the morning. Even when I wasn't at the restaurant till 4 o'clock in the morning, if I was at home. And you know, as a business owner, it's hard to sleep at night when you know you got things going on. If you have emergency calls going on, we have guys fixing air conditioning at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, you're gonna have a rough night's sleep. And
oh yeah, there was a point in Windy City not long ago where, you know, it was when we had fewer techs, and I was really directly overseeing the technicians, and you know, I would cringe whenever I knew that they were doing a call after hours because, you know, I didn't know when I was going to get that phone call. It was hard to fall asleep because of the anticipation that I even might get a phone call. You know,
exactly.
And I'm sure you were probably in the same boat at one point or another.
Yeah, and you know, I would be up to 2, 3 o'clock every single morning if I was just watching TV at home, just waiting to see, make sure nothing happens. And you know, it's like having a child that you're raising at the same time. You know, you obviously you care so much about it, and you don't want to see anything happen to it. And it's just I got down to the point where, you know, with Windy City, it was a great opportunity for me to hop into the regular business hours, and you know, I would be relating to other business owners and you know, dealing with other professionals, and I thought that was going to be a great opportunity, and which it has. I'm very grateful to work here. I love working here at Windy City and people that I work with and things that I do.
Some of them are assholes.
Yeah, a lot of them are assholes.
I'm just kidding, because some of them are probably listening. Hi, guys.
Yeah, look at his eyes. He's looking right at us. He knew who we were talking about.
we might have caught him ducking on that camera there. Make sure to include that on the thing, Jake. That's funny. So that's good. And I mean, I saw your evolution through Windy City too. I mean, it was evident from day one that because you had that relatability to, our customer base, as you know, is 90% restaurants.
Right.
So you spoke the same language, if you will. And it created an almost a immediate comfort level from these guys to be able to trust you. Because not only do you see things through their eyes, but you can also then use that to make sure that they understand that we're not your typical service company, or at least we strive not to be. It's there's a lot of things that we've evolved into now, that are evidently ways that the industry has to go, but I think the thing that separates us is probably the fundamentals. We stick to our values, our principles, our fundamentals, whatever you want to call them, that seem to almost dissipate with a lot of companies as they grow. And
well, that is a big problem as companies get bigger. A lot of times they go blind, and that's one of the things that I can say about Windy City is we keep up with our communication, we care about our customers, we want to make sure that everything's taken care of properly, and we're here to answer the questions that they have. And the more and more that we grow, I just see that growing also with the company. We're, like I said before, about putting the right people in the right places. We keep adding the right people. And with your selective
which is
hiring,
not easy to do.
No, not at all. It's and people that are going to be watching this mostly are restaurant people, and they know how hard it is to find a good hire. Yeah. And with the people and the team that we have here, everyone is so close knit. Even the bigger and bigger that we get, it just keeps staying nice and close, and everyone cares and has the same common goal.
Yeah, and I don't think that's unachievable. I don't think it's unrealistic to think that a company of any size can be that way. I think it's about how the leaders instill, into the rest of the staff, the morals, the fundamentals. That's why I created the manifesto that I did, so that everybody could understand not what Windy City does, not how Windy City does it, but why we do it, because that's the most important thing. And you don't often hear that talked about, at least not on the forefront. The reasons for doing anything that you do are why anybody chooses to follow anyone. Whether it's on social media, whether it's on in general business, or whether it's a personal relationship. I mean, really, the why is what drives.
Well, and your manifesto is fantastic, and you can see how it's taken shape and how it is helping the company and following that path. For example, our Tucson branch. Those techs down there in Tucson are fantastic. Yeah. They have a camaraderie just like we have here, even though they're 120 miles away or 100 miles away, wherever far we are from them. You go down there, we could send one of our techs from here, throw them into a restaurant with them if they're building a walk-in cooler or what they're doing, and they just form, they all work as a team. And as the company branched off to Tucson, all the same values from Phoenix moved down there, and all the same communication skills and everything went with it, and it's seamless, and you wouldn't know the difference between here and there, even though it's so far away.
Right. Well, let's digress back a little bit again. I don't want it to sound like we're trying to toot our own horn or anything. Let's get back to you. So what are you working on now? What personally and professionally? What are you doing?
Well, the equipment sales is a big venture for us, so that's a lot of my focus right now. Obviously, I manage a lot of accounts. The Chick-fil-A account's been a great account for us, and a lot of my time has been going into that, making sure that everything's set up and that we're servicing them properly. On the other hand, I know a ton about every different kind of piece of equipment, and I seem to learn more every single day on it. So, getting into with the manufacturers and crossing that hump to where we can stock a lot of equipment in-house that you wouldn't find around the valley that I know people are looking for is one of my main goals and one of the things that I've been working on right now.
Oh, very cool, very cool. We're also, I got Jake involved in this too. You know, I know that we are gearing up for the RIFMA conference here in March. For those of you who don't know what that is, RIFMA is the Regional Facility Managers Association. They've got a huge conference that they hold every year, a gathering of all the facility managers, everybody in the industry, all the vendors. It should be a blast, and I know we are gearing up. I think booth 547, is that right? Booth 547. You know, if you guys are going to be there, make sure you come see us. We're going to have some really cool stuff. We're actually going to be raffling off. Remind me again, what are we raffling off?
We're raffling off a curved Samsung TV along with an Xbox One.
Oh, okay. Is that a package deal or separately?
A package deal on that one. That was I think package deal.
Cool.
Yeah.
well,
we're going to have a couple other smaller prizes too, but that's our grand prize on that.
Awesome.
And speaking of work right now, our service manager James in the back is custom fabricating us some shelving for the show, and custom fabbed a TV stand where we're going to have some of this type of communication at the show on our TVs, and that was all custom fabbed here at Windy City.
Oh, that's cool. That's very cool. All right, so we're going to wrap this up pretty soon, but I got a couple of questions that I just want to ask, you know, especially with you and your background in restaurants. So first and foremost, what do you think is the biggest negative perception about service companies from the eyes of a business or a restaurant owner or facility manager? You know, I know it's a thinker, but and because there's so many out there, right?
Right.
But what would you say if you had to pick one? What is the most common perception when somebody says or thinks to themselves, "Oh, this piece of equipment is broken. I've got to call a repair service"?
Well, cost is the first thing.
Okay.
And outside of the parts, I mean, parts are parts. I mean, everyone has to buy them. I would say that one of the things that people worry the most about would be the amount of labor hours, and that is a perception where they're not sure how long things take, and a lot of people may think things take a faster, or that we can get things done faster than it actually is. You know, watching our techs and learning the insides layouts of the service, the diagnosis process is probably the most important process of it, and that takes time. So I think when people see the technicians taking time and going through that, standing from the outside looking over there and looking at that tech, you're not going to realize that the thought that he's going through and everything that he's checking to bring him to the next step. So you say, why is that guy sitting there wasting time?
Yeah, okay.
But he's actually, you know, compiling research from the unit to find out what he actually has to do to prepare and repair it properly. And the guys that just, you'll buzz through the diagnosis and diagnose it wrong are the guys that are going to have callbacks. So you're going to end up paying more in the long run. So when you see a guy thinking on that machine, don't assume that he's wasting time.
Did you used to have that perception before?
Yeah. You know, I had before Windy City, there was a mechanical company that I used with the Hungry Howies out here, and it was a Middleby PS360 used oven that went in the store. It was we're just opening up the store, but the technician was on his laptop and Googling everything and looking at schematics and trying to figure out what was wrong with this thing. And me, you know, as a restaurant owner at that time, I was furious because I'm not paying you to train your techs, and that's the way that I would look at it. And, you know, but you know what he did in the long run, he never had to come back. He did it right. And that's what you got to focus on, is just making sure that they're not rushed and have the time to do it right.
Okay, so what do you think, or was there a single event, or was it just progression over time? What changed your perception of that? Was it when you got to Windy City, or was it when you you know, started dealing with a service company that maybe took the time to explain it a little bit better as to why they were doing that? You know, where was that shift?
Your dad was a big part of that, like we talked about earlier, and yourself also. You're very detailed oriented with explaining what the operations and what was wrong with it when you were a technician too. So just seeing inside of the mind of a technician and the processes that, from telling me what was wrong with it and the steps that you took to explain what was wrong with it, that made me realize, there's a lot that goes into this.
Good. So a clean, crisp, clear explanation of what we did and why. Mm-hmm. All right, good. Now, last question. Can you think of a time in your life where somebody may have had an unjust perception of you? And if you can, do you mind sharing how you might have changed that perception?
Yeah, I mean, sure, there's a lot of people that look at us differently than what we think of ourselves.
No, I don't think that's true.
Yeah, I've had some bumps and bruises throughout my life, I think is a nice way to put it, where, I've been on top, I went down, went back up, mm-hmm. It's just try to be a nice person to everybody and just be respectful and honest. And I think anything that you do in your life, if you're respectful and you're honest and try to be a good person, you're going to end up being successful at the end. So.
Powerful words.
Yeah.
I happen to agree.
Thank you.
All right, cool. Well, that's pretty much all we got the time for today. I appreciate everybody tuning in. Make sure you remember to subscribe to this channel or social media platform, whatever you're watching on, whatever you see this on. We got a brand new newsletter this year, so click the link below if there is a link below to sign up for it. Also check out our podcast on SoundCloud. We got a lot of stuff going on in 2018. Stick around to see what's next. Thanks, guys.